Hola, hola, and buenos dias, GnGs. My name is Trekkw2ks, and welcome to Week in Crypto, brought to you here on the Gem on Crypto YouTube channel, aka the Crypto Network. And you know what? I messed that segue joint up. But anywho, the point being is, I'm Trekkw2ks. This is Week in Crypto. If you don't know how it works, the basic idea for the new folks is I cover the weekend news that happens between the Friday and Sunday, pop it out 08 Monday morning. I will say in the caveat of the way that I look to push these stories, or at least filter them, is that I'm looking at like event driven. A situation happened with a company, with a personality, something major in the community, and or it might sideways be connected to like just the traditional TradeFi world or the bigger geopolitical thing, and I try to make that connection into how this crypto thing or this crypto ecosystem or the people in it play out. So that's for the new folks. For the folks who've been here for a minute, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate those of you who come back. I appreciate those of you who engage with me. I appreciate those of you who also hit me up on the DM side. Apologies to folks that I have not been replying to like that. I just been on some whole next things. You know, life is happening. But nonetheless, I just want to say thank you for the folks who are paying attention. Thank you to the folks who are taking in what I say as like having some level of value to how they look at this space. I say it all the time. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a financial advisor, but I am someone who's been in this space for a while. And it's crazy in some days when I read these stories to think of where we started from to where we are now, and just seeing how the space has changed, how it has evolved and stuff like that. And yeah, so you know, I appreciate the folks who are taking the things that I'm saying as like relevant information or helpful context for how they're looking to operate and move through the space. All right, and also thank you to the scammers and the lurkers out there. I appreciate y'all too, because we know that y'all are doing it. Why? Because we see the numbers on the back end. But nonetheless, so let's get into these stories, and yeah, we will go from there. I got some interesting things on a global scale, of course. All right, so here you have it. Jumping into international stories across the pond. Basically, September 1st was Friday, and with that came in the travel rule regulation across the pond starting in the UK. So, travel rule regulations come into force in the UK for crypto asset firms. Basically, the idea behind this is if you're a company and you're domesticated, aka registered in the UK, which I'm assuming this also includes like Wales and Ireland because it's United Kingdom, although Ireland might have something else going on. But I'm actually curious now. I didn't even think of that before when I first read the story. But anywho, let me not get off in a tangent. Yo, if somebody's across the pond, you know, the Irish brethren, the Mandem, if y'all know the distinction on this, please hit me up because I am curious now on how does this work for the rest of the United Kingdom versus Britain itself, right? So here's the basic thing. UK virtual asset service providers, VAFs, need to comply with the FATFA's travel rules from September 1st. So if you don't know what the travel rule is, this is a bigger thing that is a part of the global thing about, you know, the God, AML. There we go. And so the basic idea is like, hey, for in order to have methods of anti-money laundering, you need to know who's sending the funds and then who's receiving the funds. So the idea here is, hey, we want to have the information that breaks down who is sending and receiving these funds, these crypto assets, whatever this value is. So let me also caveat with this story came in a couple of different iterations. And like there was one story that I seen that had like the chart that broke down like, well, if you're under 1,000 pounds, you're this way, and if you're above 1,000 pounds, you're that way. And like if you're a personal person using like an exchange or some kind of business, here's the ID stuff that they want from parties A and parties B. And if you're like a company, then it gets into some whole next level of like, well, if you don't have this information, then you could use that, blah, blah, blah. The point being is this has taken place, right? And let me get into a couple of the paragraphs here. So crypto asset firms in the UK are now required to comply with the Financial Action Task Force travel rules, which came into effect on September 1st. The rule represents a global attempt to apply anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing regulations to on-chain activities. So I'm a keep beating the shit out of this horse because I said this more than a year ago when the OFAC report came out, when the World Economic report came out. I forgot how they worded theirs, but basically it was like, hey, we need to do these things to regulate and throttle how blockchain and crypto related assets are adopted in the retail level as well as the financial and the business world and like everyday life. They didn't want it to just run rampant and let people do what they want to do with it. And they use, in my opinion, I'm saying this part right here. My opinion is they use anti-money laundering and terrorism as the guise to be like, well, we need to be in everybody's business on what money they have, who they send it to, how they store it, where they store it, how much they have, why they have it, and why they even look to use their money. There is literally some joints where in some jurisdictions overseas, as well as even here in the States, like the Bank of America, I think, did it recently, where like they didn't agree with why somebody wanted their money, and they was like, well, we can't give it to you. Excuse me? That's here in the States, y'all. I just need y'all to understand that. But the same thing is going on overseas. I'm running off on a tangent. I'm sorry, y'all. The point being is, if you in the UK, this is going down right now. I'm not even gonna get into the rest of this because I kind of ran on. The other thing to note, arguably as the saving grace for right now, which is down here at the bottom, is that, where is it? Here we go. However, in March of 2022, FATFA survey, the agency expressed concern. More than half of its members states have yet, to implement the travel rule. So, basic idea is they had a bunch of people who were like, yeah, we're down for it, we're a part of it, but then not everybody's on putting in the rules in a timely manner. The more important thing to walk away with from this is that that if you're doing like self-storage, your activity is not required to follow rules of transportation. And that's how it works for right now. It doesn't mean like that's going to be guaranteed after 2024, after 2025. That don't mean it's going to be guaranteed, aside from the fact of you just doing what you do to secure your economic, financial, and digital sovereignty. I'm going to throw that out there like that. But do remember, I'm not a CPA. This is not financial advice. I'm not your lawyer. I don't know what your pockets or your situation is. So if you across the way, just understand this came into effect. If you're using official companies, this is a part of it now. If you're not, and you're using a personal wallet, self-custody, then you kind of have some leeway. But arguably, it's only a matter of time before they step on that too. Just saying. So let me jump into this next story. Where you at? So Uniswap court ruling positive for future of DeFi. And Binance CEO, if you don't know, that's CZ, that's what he said. So I'm not even going to get into the whole thing with this article, honestly, because the way it was written, what they're going on about is more so throwing in other things related to what either Binance is alleged to have done or what CZ is interpreting as. The more so interesting thing to me, again, when I do these news stories, I look at it more from, did this event that happened, what does it indicate within the crypto space? And or what does it indicate or confirm within traditional legal settings, traditional jurisdictions, traditional government operations, traditional TradFi companies, or like just the business side or just the community sentiment? And there's a couple of stories I have in here that like kind of give me some indicators on some things. This is me though, and how I cross-reference stuff. I'm not saying you have to agree with me. If you disagree with me, I definitely appreciate. Leave something in the comments. Tell a friend to tell a friend, hey, this dude is talking out his ass like Binance is the greatest thing since sliced bread, or Uniswap is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't know. Whatever it is you want to say, that counters what I'm saying, as long as it's some valid point. Like, don't just talk randomness, please. I do also want to say, like, remember, like, we don't delete comments. We do keep receipts, though. So if you're going to shoot the shot, please. So let me just jump into this part right here, right? So in April 2022, this person, trader Nasser Riley, filed a lawsuit against the exchange's developers and investors for violating security laws. However, yesterday, the Southern District of New York, King be saying this all the time, the Southern District of New York is stepping their foot on everything going on in this space right now. Anywho, let me get back. Judge Catherine Polk I'm so messing up her last name, ruled that investors and developers of Uniswap could not be held responsible under federal security laws for the fraudulent tokens that cause financial harm to a trader. So here's a question for you, because you know where we're going with this. Could the developers or the founders be sued for IP violation? Because we know officially, according to the patent office, there is a patented publicly available information on the patent holder of distributed technologies, as Reggie looks to put that in that hierarchy. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Reggie Middleton, you can Google it, you can DuckDuckGo it, you can Brave it. It's out there. It's public information. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm wondering. Nonetheless, to me, this is the more relevant part, because now we got to bring in the question, when more of these lawsuits start, or more of the lawsuits start coming public about people who are really butt sore about, quote, like losing their gains, right? Because everything now on the crypto side is about getting the money, getting the bag, right? We totally threw out the whole thing about, not all of us, but y'all get where I'm going. Like back in the day, it was like, yo, this is about, financial economic sovereignty. But now we on this whole, we got to get the bag stuff. The point being is that I think that is the more relevant part of this whole article. Because now what does this mean for when the other lawsuits pop up? And whose lawyer is going to be smart enough to be like, oh, yo, the Southern District of New York said blah, blah, blah. Because now, okay, let me try to make a more clear, let me land the plane, as they say. If you are an exchange going forward, and then you have users who are going to then who are going to file lawsuits to go, hey, you need to be held accountable for me losing money, which is basically what's going on here. And so even if it's that was a security, this is a security, that isn't a security, this is a fake pump coin, whatever. The angle of this person arguing about it being a security is arguably nascent. I think the bigger thing is you can't go and try to sue the exchange and the other users of the platform saying, well, there were pump and dump tokens and coins on this exchange, and then I lost money off of it. Like, no, the bottom line is this judge is saying like, nah, we can't hold people accountable under security laws for stuff like this. And I wonder if it's more so like, well, if it was already on an up and up platform, or what's the word I'm looking for? Not device, but startup project, or protocol, then they would have already registered as a security, so we would know who to go after. We would be able to be like, okay, well, we can make you whole because you need to go directly to X, Y, and Z platform, protocol, whatever token, right? Versus I'm going to go after the exchange and other users the developers of the exchange and other other quote investors, in order for them to make me whole because I put my money in a scam. Like, where's the financial literacy? Where's the financial accountability? Like, that's the other part of it too, in my mind, where it's like, bro, but you put your money in dumb shit. That's on you for putting your money in dumb shit and then not wanting to be financially accountable. That's at least how I'm looking at the shit. But anywho, jumping off to this next story. This one, So case involving Filecoin in China court rules payment with file illegal. So the title of this article is actually off in what actually went on in this case, and I have some level of assumption. I don't know exactly because I didn't dig in. I'm just going off of what's in this article and what more than likely makes sense. And as I'll be telling y'all, like, when you're reading these articles and when you're trying to like make sense of what's going on in the space, and you see an article out there, the title says one thing, but the body says some other stuff. X amount of time, X amount of it is fluff BS, right? But then there'd be little nuggets in there where you got to kind of figure out how to decipher, like, well, what is this actually saying? So here's why I'm taking this as an event, but I'm not taking it as this is a trend setting thing. More so, this is a confirmation of something. And I'm gonna show you another side after this that will get you to understand like why I'm making that statement. But let me jump into a couple of these lines here, right? So a Chinese court has ruled that a contract regarding Filecoin mining violates the principles of green development and social and public interest and is therefore invalid. Okay, that sounds like a lot. That sounds not heavy legalese, but it sounds like, okay, well, something happened that the contract didn't make sense. Why did it not make sense? Let's get into that. All right. So next line, right? So, all right. According to the case details, plaintiff, I'm going to say Zoe, and the defendant, a technology company. What I don't like about how this article is written is they don't tell you who the technology company is. If you were able to look at the case details and see the name of the plaintiff, you should have also seen the name of the defendant. So that right there also tells me like they ain't really doing their thing on how they write in these articles. That's at least my take on it. All right, so let me continue. Signed a server storage purchase agreement on July 7th, 2021. The contract stated that Zoe would purchase an IPFS storage server for, let's say, over 175,000 yen, and that the server would be managed by the technology company at a computer center. So this is basically a data center. So basically, this technology company manages servers for other people who don't want to house and deal with the daily management and maintenance requirements of but managing a server for whatever you're using it for. Okay, so let's put this in context of what's going on here. So now, here's the kicker of it, and this is, I think, is the giveaway for why the lawsuit happened. The technology company guaranteed that the server could provide service on the IPF network IPFS network. If you don't know about the interplanetary file storage, yeah, so decentralized storage, IPFS network, and earn Filecoin rewards and promised to close the gap if coin production was lower than the market average level. That right there tells me I'm kind of jumping out of it sideways as far as why I think this person made the lawsuit was they weren't, how to say this, they weren't meeting what their expectation was of the rewards. And so they probably went to the company and was like, yo, you guys need to, make me whole, make good on what you guaranteed me, right? They probably turned around and was like, well, we'll do it in a bit, or like, no, we can't do that right now, or like, no, we never said that. One of these 3 or 4 things happened. So it's like, okay, bet. I'm gonna just go to the thing and sue y'all because we have a contract. Now, here's where we jump into this next part down here. Where we at? All right. And y'all know I be jumping through stuff because there's certain parts to me that are more relevant than others. And this is just how I'm framing it, and hence why I give y'all the links for these. So if y'all want to read through it in a deeper thing, if y'all want to cross-reference it, you can always follow up and look through and see where the thing is. Assuming that the story, the article on the website it's on doesn't get updated from what you see here when you're looking at it as I'm recording it may not be the same thing you see if you're looking at this like a day later, 2 days later, a week or a month or whatever later. I've definitely noted that at times where when I'll see a story earlier in the day, and then by the time I get around to making a recording, like they've done an update or two, and I've seen stuff where they've changed titles, they've changed captions, they've taken out whole paragraphs, added in whole new paragraphs. So just keep that in mind if you look to follow up with these articles. Not They may be changed or augmented from how you see them on the screen now. Just keep that in mind. So let me jump into the last paragraph. Sorry about that, y'all. Additionally, according to the court's documents, Filecoin mining consumes large amounts of electricity and resources, which is against the National Green Development Policy and harms social and public interests. Therefore, the court ruled that the contract violated the mandatory provisions of the law and regulation and was invalid. The court also ordered the technology company to return all contract funds to Zoe and pay interest for the capital occupation. That part right there got me, that they then turned around and was like, yo, and you got to pay interest to the guy. So that leads me to believe he probably followed the thing of like, hey, the numbers aren't adding out as you said they would. And see, that's the other part I don't like about how the story's broken down. They don't tell you how long he was actually operating, how long the server was actually operating. Was it operating for 6 months? Was it operating for a year? Because like the contract was made back in 2021, but does that mean that they actually delivered the server and the service in that same month? Or was that like 2 months later, 3 months later? How long was he actually running? And then the other question of, did the server run up until they went into court? Was it running while they were into court? How long was the court process? You don't know any of that because that's not information that's given to you in this. That's my point about like when you read into the stories, it's like what's missing from this story to give it a more holistic picture. That's what I'm trying to get at about this story. So the other thing to note is that I think that's part of why the court went so hard in the plaintiff's favor, because it's like, you wouldn't have just did that if it was operating for like a month. You wouldn't have just did that if it was operating for like maybe 3 months or 6 months. Like this person must have went through the legwork to argue with them like, hey, you guys need to fulfill your contract. Now, granted, in my mind, the court looking at this thing as far as like, oh, well, it doesn't meet the green energy thing, that I kind of find interesting in that, is it the lawyer that argued it that way? Or was it that the lawyer that the person had said, hey, they violated the contract, we at least want our money back. And then the court would, all right, we'll give you the money back and we'll have to figure out what current laws would make it that this contract could be made null and void. And they would have to return funds and we could penalize them to do interest. That's what the part where I'm like, I don't get where they spun it that way, but I understand that that's a thing. The point being is that I've been saying this for like a while. Like, y'all, like for the folks who are new, I used to write like back in 2018, 19. And there was stories back then coming out of China on how their version of the Supreme Court was already saying blockchains would count as documented legal evidence. So it only makes sense that it would move in this direction too. And I got another story that works into the same thing about virtual assets and like the whole property right thing. But within this thing here, what's also getting me why, where's it at? Oh, all right. So here we go. All right. So this is the funny thing about China. What I need y'all to kind of understand, especially if you haven't been out in China, if you haven't been out in the East, if you don't get, if you're just solely a Western, especially if you're solely just an American-based person, like you ain't never been out the country or nothing, putting this in the context of technically China is, what is it, the Chinese Communist Party. That's the political system, but they have socialist tendencies in that. Their economic system is capitalist all the way, right? Those are arguably two opposites of conceptual ideas of how to run your governmental system and your financial system. They're not supposed to mingle together, but China makes it work. The point of why I bring that up is because we go through these stories and we get them every so often about how China said this, China government said blah, 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 the ban on crypto, mining doesn't exist in China anymore, 100% cap, 100% bullshit. And here's why I'm saying part of that. One, if you've been out that way and you talk to people who are out there in Beijing, in Shanghai, like folks who are out there on ground, they'll tell you like, no, this shit is still popping out here. Here's why I'm going into this, right? So I found this website called Filecoin Energy. You see what this map shows on it, right? Now, if I go over here, this is basically the number of providers in China, right? This is, let me jump in so you see what I'm talking about. So, okay, is it going to do it? All right. So that is China, right? And basically what this shows is, here's the number of people who are providing storage to Filecoin, which now works on its thing, what is it called? Storage space consensus or something like that. So basically it's like if you provide space, that's how they have their consensus mechanism. And then there's a whole thing about how the size of the space you provide helps you with being able to like be the one to get the reward or whatever. The point being is this, right? The government says it's illegal to receive Filecoin as a reward payment. Now, I'm not the lawyer, I'm not the CPA, I'm not the financial advisor, but if this map is anything of real and people are actually doing what this person in this lawsuit did, which was let me go rent out a whole server in a data center. It's one thing of what's presented in public. It's another thing of what's actually on ground. And that's what I'm trying to show y'all with providing you this particular site to show you that like the government says one thing, what people are doing on ground is another thing. I'm not even saying that these numbers are 100% accurate as far as it being the 5,000 plus providers or whatever. I'm just saying there is some level of activity in China and people are still following through on mining crypto in whatever means they can, whether we're talking proof of work, proof of stake. What's the other one that, oh God, I can't remember the name of them. Point being is, don't believe all of the news hype cycle about China banning crypto. And technically what they did was they banned the foreign exchanges. So no Robinhood, no Coinbase. That's technically what they were doing. And that was also about capital flight control. Yo, if you've been following me for a minute, if you've been on the lives with the 10 o'clock hour with King and Zay, you know I've been saying capital flight controls for a hot minute now. Anywho, I'm jumping on to this next story because I beat that one to death. All right, so here's this other Chinese story, right? So amid crypto bans, remember what I just said to y'all, China judiciary upholds virtual asset rights. All right, so again, it's one thing for what the government part of it says as far as the political system. It's another thing for what the legal judicial part of it says. And then there's what people are actually doing on ground. I bring these points up to you to highlight that it's a difference between these different, let's say, interested groups, these groups of invested interest. There we go. Groups of invested interest. The government, the judiciary, people on ground. Okay. And so here you have this story comes out, basic idea, and I'm gonna jump into a couple of these lines and then we're gonna kind of move on. All right. In a significant move, the Chinese court has released a report that delves deep into the legal standing of virtual assets. What happened? According to a report by local newspaper O'Daily, which if you actually hit the hyperlink on that, the whole thing is Chinese, but you can get it to translate. The court recognizes these digital assets as legal property, despite the broader restrictions imposed on them by the nation. In its recent report titled Identification of Property Attributes of Virtual Currencies and Disposal of Property Involved in the case, posits that virtual assets, given their economic characteristics, squarely fit in the definition of property. Okay, so here's the thing that I'm gonna kind of jump to the cut to the chase on it. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I've been saying it for a while. Again, like it's what happens on the public side, as far not the public side, but what happens with the public narrative and interpretation of how those of us in the West see and quote understand what's going on in China and what goes on in the East versus the what's actually happening on ground. This is a perfect example of that. And in my mind, this event is just more of a confirmation of, like Russia, China's judicial branch, judicial sector, judicial invested players are moving accordingly to make sure that they can incorporate some legal wrapping, some legal casing, some legalese around how to deal with crypto, blockchain, all types of virtual assets as they are connected to anything blockchain related. And this is not just a yesterday thing. This has been going on for at least 5+ years at this point. Again, I was talking about this stuff back in 2018 when I was writing for a certain exchange. But that's what I'm gonna say on that one. Again, link for this is in the description. And it just still goes to the point of, it's one thing being said, it's also the misinterpretation of what the ban was actually about. The ban was focused on foreign exchanges. They didn't want foreign exchanges in mainland China. It doesn't mean you couldn't operate out of Hong Kong, though. It doesn't mean you couldn't operate out of Taiwan, because remember who was in Hong Kong? Your boy Arthur Hayes. Just saying, just throwing it out there. Hong Kong is in a very interesting position intentionally, at least in my opinion and understanding. Anywho, jumping on to this next story. So, MakerDAO. So y'all saw what I did with the title, right? Co-founder says MakerDAO is moving to Solana. So that's not specifically what he actually said. What he said was that he's going to do this thing called New Chain, and it's basically going to work like a security layer on the back end for MakerDAO. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, like, I haven't paid much attention to MakerDAO, right? Man, I haven't paid attention to a lot of the Ethereum stuff. I'm just literally just looking at the news stories, like, and seeing how these things are being put out in public, and like what the public sentiment is being pushed as, or like how it's being labeled, or the narrative being spun around this stuff. Okay. And I swear to goodness, man, when I was reading this one, it just blew my mind, because it was just like, wait, what? Like, you're talking about using Solana? And it just, it's like, well, why? What is going on that makes Solana acceptable? And so let me jump into we're going to cut the chase and jump into the parts where he talks about his rationale behind this, right? Again, links for this will be in the description. You can definitely follow up on this. Do keep in mind that some of these articles will be updated by the time you actually see it. And I don't know what they might take in or leave out or whatever. So where's this? Okay, so let me jump in it from here, right? So specifically, this is how the author says this, the writer. So specifically, the veteran crypto developer says Solana presents high efficiency along with an ecosystem galvanized by the collapse of FTX, plus a history of already successfully being forked, such as Pyth, the Oracle solution. All right, so we're painting, the founder, what's his name? Remen Christian? Rune. Okay, whatever on the name. To be, this highly intelligent, this guy who's like an OG in the space. He knows all this stuff. Okay, great. Now, let's get into the reasonings here. As you can see, the first reason is the technical quality of Solana's code base, as it is highly optimized for the purpose of operating a singular, highly efficient blockchain, which is what New Chain requires. The Solana codebase is engineered well and benefits from being designed long after the bottlenecks and challenges of blockchains were already well understood, which fits nicely with the objective of New Chain itself in fixing the technical debt of Maker. Solana, already has 2 client implementations, which is crucial for resilience. All right, so here's my interpretation of that paragraph. What he's really saying is, we know that in the early stages of Ethereum, it was the whole narrative of code is law. And then when we got into the whole thing about, well, if someone was able to follow code and then have it work out to their personal advantage versus the founder's advantage, aka Ethereum Classic versus Vitalik's Ethereum, which is funny that we don't name it that way, considering we do in Bitcoin, how we name Craig Wright's Bitcoin versus Bitcoin versus what's his name's Bitcoin Cash. But anywho, so the idea of it being highly efficient, yes, Solana definitely processes a shit ton of transactions because of how it is set up in the combination of the on-chain, off-chain stuff. But here's the thing. What he's also saying is, and sideways he's saying it is, like, we can basically reset without having the issue that we would have if it was fully on chain and you actually had to go back and deal with what part of the chain has the longest history of transactions. That's how it used to work before Ethereum moved over into proof of stake. Other thing to note, Solana doesn't have that version of Ethereum's consensus. They're still able to just turn off and on their version of a blockchain and then go, all right, well, we're going to either take out these transactions, add in these transactions, reverse these transactions. And that's just how their code works. That's what he's not saying in this. He's making it sound like, oh no, these are the great selling points. But if you know what was going on with Solana over the last 15 months, you know that's what he's actually trying to sell as the highlights and the value added is that, well, basically we can turn it off and on and then we can reset. That's basically it. So second paragraph, the second reason is that Solana's ecosystem has proven resilient by having gone through the FTX blowup. Despite all the issues and hardships, the project has still thriving developer community. This means that it has a significant Lindy effect and is likely to stick around long after long term, and means that the cost for developing and maintaining will be much lower, and that will always be high quality pool of talent available for Maker to access and contribute to. First off, again, this is one of those, like, if you've been around for a minute, you kind of got to look at it and go, like, wait, what is he not saying? If you've been around for a minute, you know the money that's moving around to push Solana as a thing on the back end, that's not the regular retail level folks. That's the back end investor people. That's the VCs. So the idea of like, well, oh, they have the talent pool. I'm not saying they don't have talented coders who can write in the Solana language. What I'm saying is the way that he's making it sound as though the talent pool is there because Solana is the greatest is like, more so like the paycheck is nice and who's trying to walk away from that money. That's a part of how that really works out. Because I remember when I was in, where did I go? I forgot what event I was at. And I was talking to one of the dudes that I know who's a developer. And he literally kind of just jumps from chain to chain. And he's like, yo, whoever got the money, I'm going to throw up a project on y'all. And it's literally one of those copy and paste. Like he copies and pastes X amount of his projects on different chains. And they throw the money at him. Because they want their version of the thing that he did on Ethereum. Because they want their version on the thing that he did on Solana. Because they want their version of the thing that he did on Near. Like, that's literally I'm really simplifying the game plan. But that's literally how your man is just eating right now. And I've been watching him do this for a couple of years now. Anywho, I'm not even going to get into the third reason because it's kind of stupid in my opinion. The point being is that this is going to be interesting to watch if they actually implement Solana and then do they start doing the things that Solana did in 2021. No, sorry, in 2022. They turned it off like over 5 times in 1 year. And then they did resets. Like, I'm just saying, I'm not telling nobody to put their finances or anything like that. What I'm saying is what it looks to me like is MakerDAO is setting up for a better way to be able to control the funds and transactions within the pool. And I'm not saying they couldn't already do certain things now, but if you're going to add Solana in on this, it's just like you're doubling down on having some level of centralization within the economics and tokenomics of how the platform works. As, quote, a decentralized blockchain, I'm just saying it doesn't make sense. But let's move on. Next story. Where are you at? All right. So Robinhood embraces Bitcoin and what was it? Robinhood embraces Bitcoin and Dogecoin for its wallets as it sets sights on Ethereum's ecosystem. So I'm going to try to cut this one kind of short because I've been definitely running on time. Run through these highlights here, put this in, and then throw the thoughts on it, right? So Robinhood, what is it? Robinhood Wallet has announced support for new virtual currencies nearly 6 months after its initial launch, offering users a wide range of options. In August 30th blog post, Robinhood confirmed support for Bitcoin and Dogecoin for all classes of users. Going forward, users of self-custody wallet can hold and send BTC and Doge, with the firm hinting at support for more assets. Apart from Bitcoin and Doge, Robinhood users can interact with various networks, including Optimism, Polygon, Ethereum, and Arbitrum. Where is that? So Furthermore, Robinhood Wallet unveiled an in-app Ethereum swap for 200 plus assets, open to only select class users. The company disclosed that the new swap feature is an attempt to introduce its customers to decentralized finance and network fees automatically deducted from token holdings. All right, so here's how I take the story. It is a event that shows that you have the financial apps. So we're looking at PayPal, Venmo, Robinhood, like these pajama level, retail level investor apps. To me, this is okay, Robinhood is setting themselves up for the halvening as we move towards it. Why? Because based on how the previous records look, as far as transaction history and patterns, and I'm not endorsing TA, I'm just going off of what I think the logic is behind this, is where they're looking at it going, well, we know that we're good on the regulatory side. We know that based on past history and activity, X amount of time up to and after the halvening happens, all of the various cryptos go through some level of pump. So that means we can see this base level of generated activity that we can get our cut from. So somebody counted the numbers and it looked a certain way and it was like, ooh, that taste is good. We about to eat. The other thing to understand about this is, and King has been saying this for a hot minute, I've been saying it for however long, other folks been saying this, you got to understand, like, these exchanges, these trader apps, they all work against the end user. They all work against, especially if it's a free platform, they are 100% working against you as far as counter trading whatever it is you're putting in, front running whatever it is you're putting in. Why? Because what's dude's name from the Daily Show? He broke down the whole thing on how Robinhood works. And I remember when the Wall Street Bets folks situation happened and they shut down the whole thing. And I was saying to folks like, yo, they literally turned off the kill switch to be able to cut the users off from being able to beat the system. Like, the house hates it when you win, and they will do everything in order to make it that you can't win. And then they'll turn around and tell you some shit like, oh, well, it's the regulators. Oh, well, it's how the system is set up. The system is literally set up that if the users move too fast and being able to make a gain, they have to turn the system off. It's a fail safe. Like, think about that. But no one paid attention when what's his name was going off on the PR tour and telling folks like, yeah, so this and this happened, blah, blah, blah. And if you listen to certain interviews that he did, well, first you got to find the interviews, but he did an interview on Earn Your Leisure. And I remember I said some stuff in the comment and people was getting on me for calling out the bullshit. Was like, oh, well, you know, it only means blah, blah, blah. They got caught with their hand. No, like, people literally got on me on IG for calling out the bullshit of what he was explaining, in that he was telling the folks, yo, the system is hard coded to not let you win. We had to turn it off so the end user couldn't make it. And I called it out, and then you know what? Let me not even get into YSL. They doing what they do. They eating how they eat. I'm not mad at that, right? You see two other folks making it, good for them. But I will say, I know I'm more cautious of how I listen to other folks talk financial stuff as it relates to crypto in this space. That's just me. Anywho. So yeah, that's that story. I'm just saying, and full disclosure, I have the app, right? But I don't use Robinhood for nothing crypto related. I probably only touch it once a year, and that's because of taxes. And I'm not even saying it like I'm balling or nothing. Like, it's pennies literally still there. Pennies. Anywho, this is a situation. I think we'll see other financial related apps doing things similar. Expect to probably see some exchanges potentially making some kind of partnerships with these American related apps. So Venmo, PayPal, and you see PayPal got their stablecoin thing. So some stuff is about to happen with that. But yeah, like, this is going to lead. It confirms Robinhood definitely is setting themselves up. And it also indicates that we should probably see some other platforms looking to make some similar kind of setups. That's how I'm looking at it. All right, so last story here. And when I seen this, I was like, wait, what? Who brought you out the woodworks, my man? So if you don't know, if you didn't come into crypto until like 2022, 2023, you don't know Anthony Papagiannis as Pomp, and what he was doing during the C19 thing, and how he was going hard in the paint for Bitcoin and BlockFi, and how it was the best investment, the best Bitcoin or crypto investment platform ever because your returns were blah, 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 blah. And I mean, your man was going hard in the paint. Like he had the whole live stream. He had eventually got it to where he got his brothers in on it, and they were doing their whole podcast thing. Lo and behold, I'm not hating on him. Eat how you gonna eat. Like I realize that like some of the stuff might come off as though I'm hating on certain people, and it's not necessarily me hating on them for them having their revenue models, their means of how they put food on their table. I'm not hating on it for that. I'm definitely smudging for how certain people change their tunes. And in regards to this story, let's jump into a couple of things here, okay? So, Pomplianos on US seek and its approach to crypto regulation, spot, Bitcoin ETF, and Bitcoin. So at first when I saw this, I thought they actually did an interview with him. It turns out, no. What Crypto Globe did was they took, basically, they went through an interview he was doing on CNBC on the financial segment, and they basically rehashed what he said, right? And basically, he was like really being friendly to Gensler. He was also being friendly to the SEC, saying, you know, it's a difficult balance between investors and consumer protection and blah, 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 blah. And then he was being friendly to Gensler and stuff. But what kind of got me, and let me get down to this. Listen, link for this is in the description. What I want you to do is look at the composition of how he's looking in this. And I imagine if King listened to this, he'd be like, oh, your man is on something. They brought him on, and because he's probably setting up. In my mind, this is me, my 2 cents. If you disagree with me, please, comments is always open. Again, I'm not the financial advisor. I'm not the CPA. I'm not the lawyer. I'm just somebody who's been looking at these stories for a hot minute. And I was following him like before he did the COVID, C19 story stuff. And like, well, not before, but like before he made that transition into doing the whole live podcast and stuff. And so here's my take on him being brought out to talk about the ETF and to give the SEC and Gensler like, yo, we got to give them the Bitcoin pass because, you know, it's a hard job. I honestly think, and I have no way of confirming this because I don't know anybody in his camp and I don't dig into his stuff like that. But I think that when the BlockFi lawsuit stuff happened, he had to step away from the crypto space. And if you looked at his social media footprint, your man scrubbed everything, which means in my mind, he got the like, oh, you need to clean your act up, step away from how you've been pushing on the Bitcoin thing and the crypto stuff in general, because even the podcast changed. And so he then comes out now. I think we're about at a year, or it might be a little bit longer than a year, or it might be shorter than a year. I don't remember when the case came out. But my point is, I think he is past his it's not gag order, but like I think he had like I don't think it was a no compete, but I think they definitely had him like step away from BlockFi. He can't publicly be on the tirade that he was on before, and so now he can come back in because now he has Pompliano Investment. That's the name of the firm that he is being listed as on this segment. He's the co-founder of Pompliano Investment, which again to me is just one of those like, you haven't been doing any actual interviews like that. You really haven't been talking about Bitcoin like that. You scrubbed your whole past YouTube footprint, Twitter footprint, LinkedIn footprint, and now you're coming back? And you're talking like all lovey-dovey about Gensler and the SEC? Oh, somebody's positioning for something. I'm taking this segment as, and again, as I said before, like it's either a personality, it's a company, it's something that's like the community's moving on. And I take these things as either confirmations or indicators. This to me is an indicator. And when I'm looking at his getup, like your man got the power suit on. He got the lapel. He got the, this is the DC uniform when I'm trying to get money. And I'm letting folks know, hey, I'm pro-American. I'm down for the blue team probably. And he also probably a gang too. And folks who don't know, like, I don't really bring it up like that as far as the whole military side, the uniform stuff. But like, when you listen to him talk, and I wish I could actually play when this whole thing, because it's like over 7 minutes long. I highly encourage you to go and listen to what he actually says in this. He also says something else that got me, where the guy asks him like, hey, so, you know, Bitcoin as a currency, is that like still a relevant thing? He doesn't say it exactly like that, but he's like, well, that's a good question. And, you know, it really depends on what the use case is. Like, And he gets in this thing about like how you have the people who are looking at crypto as a store of value, aka like a precious metal. And then he talks about how the white paper kind of um, makes reference to Bitcoin being used as everyday cash. And I was just like, wait, what? Wait, hold on. It kind of did that? Listen, y'all can go and listen to it. If I'm wrong, please check me in the comments. I appreciate the Twitter DM is open. I'm not shooting shots at him for getting money. That's not what I'm trying to do here. And this is Zay boy. Like this is Zay's people here, right? And that he's been on when he had the other podcast. He had Zay on there like 2 or 3 times, I think. The point is just looking at the transformation and seeing that he's delivering talking points and he's doing it in a way that's like, hey, I'm Wall Street friendly. I'm trade fi friendly. I know crypto has this, thing over here as far as hooded, black hackers and blah 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 and dark web this and that and Bitcoin and criminals and blah blah blah. But he's like, no, if you listen to how your man is talking, he's working up to something. I don't know what it is. All I know is I just looked at the uniform that he's wearing, and that is a uniform. I promise you, that is a uniform. And I'm listening to what he's saying, and it's just like, oh, okay. Something's going to come out of this. And he's probably in talks with some other stuff going on. But the whole Pompliano investment, or Pomp investment, I forget what it's actually called, it definitely makes me wonder what conversations he's been in the last couple of months. This is not financial advice. This is just me looking at it going, something is being worked on in the background. That this doesn't necessarily seem like he's talking about retail level stuff. He's more so talking about the financial big houses. He even talks about the family hedges, family funds, or something along that line. I'm rambling. Sorry. Here's the point. This is an indicator to me that there's stuff being worked out, and he is working to get in, or this is PR for him to get money in his investment company. That's it. That's the bottom line. This is him getting out there on the mainstream to be like, yo, I'm good. I'm one of the folks that you can bring that money in, and we can get you on this crypto wave. That's what this is. That's just marketing. That's all it is. Other than that, y'all, like, I'm sorry, I went on way long, but I do appreciate the folks who actually stayed into this. Hopefully, X amount of what I said actually makes sense, or at least gets you to start questioning things. Even if you're questioning me and my bullshit, at least start questioning stuff and be like, wait, was that what really happened? Let me go read this other story. Let me read the article more or something. Like, I'm just saying, at least if you start questioning stuff, like, that's at least a starting point. Hopefully something does help you, though. Hopefully. Again, not financial advice. I'm not the CPA. I'm not the lawyer. I'm not, the financial advisor. Other than that, that's what I got for you. And don't forget that me and 3D co-host Metaverse is the Other Side. So that's a whole other element of a show that I do. Again, the same thing of, like, we do stay away from the price talk stuff, but we do a lot of Metaverse-related conversations that be definitely going real far left and real far, like, into the woo-woo side of things. But if that's not your cup of tea, it's cool. Like, I know my news content, my style of delivery is not for everyone, and I make no qualms about that. It's okay that I click with who I click with. That's what it is. At the end of the day, like I say, side note, it is Labor Day. So for the folks who haven't actually still punched the clock and all of that right now, I appreciate you for what you do within this bigger society. Whether if you're an office worker, a warehouse worker, a remote worker right now, whether you're doing a physical work, you know what I'm saying? Like, I appreciate you for what you do, if nobody told y'all that today. And yeah, man, like, you got to give it up for the folks who still punching the clock. And hopefully you get time and a half or double time, at least time and a half, right? At least time and a half. But other than that, y'all, as I say, have a productive over busy day. If it can't be that, at least be in good space with good, be in a safe place. Be in a safe space, in a safe place with good company. And from one human to another human, that's the best that I can wish you. And other than that, y'all, one.